My son died 7 years ago. I sent his wife $40,000 every year until my granddaughter grabbed my sleeve and whispered, "Grandpa, don't send Mom any more money. Just follow her. You'll see what I discovered next terrified me." I'm Leonard Garrison, 58 years old, and let me tell you something about trust. When you've spent 25 years in construction, you learn to check every joint twice. When you've served in the Navy, you learn that attention to detail keeps people alive. But when it comes to family, apparently I forgot everything I knew about proper inspection. My son Daniel died 7 years ago in what they called a construction accident. Scaffolding collapse at a job site downtown. They said the safety cables failed, the whole structure came down like a house of cards, and my boy was underneath it all. We buried him on a Tuesday in October, and I swear the whole town showed up. Daniel was that kind of guy. Everybody liked him. That day still haunts me. I can still hear the phone ringing at 6:30 in the morning. Still feel my wife Patricia's hand shaking my shoulder as she handed me the phone. "Leonard, you need to take this." The voice on the other end was calm, professional. "Mr. Garrison, this is Detective Murphy with the city police. There's been an accident at the Riverside construction site. Patricia died 2 years after we buried Daniel. Doctor said her heart just gave out. But I knew better. She died of grief, pure and simple. Lost 40 pounds in those 2 years, stopped eating, stopped sleeping, stopped caring about anything. Would sit in Daniel's old room for hours, just staring at his high school football trophies. He was supposed to outlive us, Leonard. She'd whisper. Children are supposed to outlive their parents. After Patricia passed, it was just me and Daniel's family. His wife, Victoria, took it hard. Real hard. Or at least that's what I thought at the time. She had our granddaughter Sophie to raise, just 6 months old when Daniel passed. Beautiful little girl with her daddy's eyes and her mama's stubborn streak. Victoria was 28, widowed with a baby, and I wasn't about to let my son's family struggle. So I started sending money. $40,000 every January, like clockwork. Money I earned running Garrison Hardware, the store my father started back in 1978. It wasn't easy money, understand. Every dollar came from getting up at 5 a.m., opening the store at 6, dealing with contractors and homeowners until 8 at night. My hands are rough as sandpaper from 40 years of handling tools and lumber. But I figured that's what Daniel would have wanted. Take care of his girls. Victoria always seemed grateful those first few years. "Thank you, Leonard," she'd say when the check came. "Sophie's going to need this for college someday." She'd send pictures of Sophie at Christmas and birthdays. The little girl growing up, starting to walk, then talk, then heading off to school. Normal stuff. Family stuff. But here's the thing about construction work. You develop instincts. When something's not level, you feel it before you see it. When a foundation's got problems, there are signs. Little cracks that most people miss. And about 6 months ago, I started noticing cracks. It was small things at first. Victoria would mention trips she was taking with Sophie. Disney World 1 month, a beach vacation the next. Now, I'm not saying people can't take vacations, but these weren't weekend trips to the lake. These were expensive trips, the kind that cost more than most people make in months. When I asked how she was managing it all, she'd say something about Daniel's life insurance finally paying off, or she'd gotten a raise at her job. But the cracks kept spreading. Victoria started avoiding my calls. Used to be she'd pick up on the second ring, eager to chat about Sophie's latest accomplishments or ask for advice about raising a daughter alone. Now it would go straight to voicemail. When she did call back, it was always hurried, distracted. "Sorry, Leonard, I'm just so busy with work lately." Work, that was another crack. Victoria claimed she worked in marketing for some company downtown, but whenever I asked specifics, she'd get vague. "Oh, you know. Client management stuff. Pretty boring." When I offered to take Sophie overnight so Victoria could work late or travel for business, she'd always have an excuse. "Thanks, but my schedule's really unpredictable right now. My friend Carl Murphy is a retired detective. We served together in the Navy back in the day, and he's got that cop instinct that never really goes away." Carl started asking questions I hadn't thought to ask. "Leonard," he said one day over coffee at Murphy's diner, "what exactly does Victoria do for work?" I realized I didn't have a clear answer. Something with marketing, I thought. Or maybe it was sales. She'd been vague about it for years. "And this company she works for," Carl continued, "what's it called?" I opened my mouth to answer and realized I didn't know that either. 7 years of supporting my daughter-in-law, and I didn't even know where she supposedly worked. That's when Carl suggested something that made my stomach turn. Leonard, I think you need to start paying closer attention, real close attention. So I started doing what Carl suggested. Paying attention, real attention, the kind I should have been paying all along. First thing I did was drive past Victoria's house more often. Nothing obvious, just taking different routes when I was out running errands for the store. The house looked normal enough. Small two-story place on Maple Street that Daniel had bought right before he died. Decent neighborhood, well-maintained yard. But I noticed Victoria's car wasn't there much during the day. For someone who supposedly worked from home doing marketing consultations, she was gone an awful lot. Then I started timing things. Left the hardware store at lunch and drove by around noon. No car. Drove by again at 3 p.m. when I was making bank deposits. Still no car. Where was she during normal business hours? And where was Sophie? The kid should have been getting off the school bus at 3:15, but I never saw her walking up to an empty house. The more I watched, the more questions I had. Victoria drove a brand new BMW SUV, not the kind of vehicle you buy on a widow's budget, even with life insurance money. The car payments alone probably cost more than most people's rent. And her clothes when I did see her designer stuff. The kind of outfits my Patricia used to admire in magazines but never bought because we had more practical things to spend money on. Carl offered to help dig deeper. "Look, Leonard," he said one evening when I stopped by his place. "I've still got connections from my detective days. Let me make a few calls, see what I can find out." Quietly, Carl's been my friend for 30 years. If anyone was going to help me figure this out without causing a family explosion, it was him. He still had access to databases, knew people who could run background checks, could find information without leaving fingerprints. What he found made my blood run cold. Victoria had a second apartment. Not just any apartment either, a luxury place downtown, the kind with doormen and parking garages and views of the river. The kind that cost more per month than most people's mortgages. According to Carl's contacts, she'd been living there for almost 3 years. There's more, Carl said when he called me with the information. His voice had that careful tone cops use when they're about to deliver bad news. She's not living there alone. I sat down hard in my kitchen chair. What do you mean? Neighbor in the building says she lives with a man. Mid-30s, drives a Mercedes. Been there as long as she has. The room started spinning. Did you get a name? Mason Torres, 34 years old, works in insurance claims investigation. And Leonard, there's something else. Something you're not going to want to hear. I gripped the phone tighter. Just tell me. Mason Torres was the insurance investigator on Daniel's accident case. The same accident that supposedly killed your son. The same accident that paid out a $500,000 life insurance policy to Victoria. The pieces were falling into place and I didn't like the picture they were making. Victoria and this Mason guy had been together for 3 years, which meant they'd been together since right after Daniel died. And Mason had investigated the accident that killed my son. "Carl," I said slowly, "I think we need to consider the possibility that Daniel's accident wasn't an accident." There was a long pause. That's what I was thinking too. But thinking it and proving it are two different things. The next morning, I couldn't focus on anything at the store. Kept thinking about Daniel, about that phone call 7 years ago, about the funeral where Victoria cried so hard she could barely stand up. Had it all been an act? Had she been mourning my son while planning a life with his killer? Every other Saturday, I take Sophie to Riverside Park for ice cream. It's been our routine since she was old enough to walk. Chocolate chip for me, strawberry for her. She's 7 now, smart as a whip, and she notices everything. More than any adult gives her credit for. We were sitting on our usual bench when she did something she'd never done before. She looked around like she was checking if anyone was listening, then scooted closer to me. "Grandpa," she whispered, "I need to tell you something important." The way she said it made my chest tighten. This wasn't a kid talking about playground drama or wanting an extra cookie. This was serious. "What is it, sweetheart?" She glanced around again, then leaned so close I could smell the strawberry ice cream on her breath. "Don't send Mom any more money?" I blinked. "What do you mean?" "The checks you send every year, don't send them anymore." Her little voice was so quiet I could barely hear her. "Just follow her sometime when she goes out at night." "You'll see, Sophie. I don't understand. Follow her where? To the fancy building where she lives with Uncle Mason." Her brown eyes, so much like Daniel's, looked scared. "Mom doesn't know I know about that place. She thinks I'm asleep when she takes me there sometimes, but I'm not. I see everything." My heart was pounding. "Uncle Mason? That's what Mom tells me to call him, but he's not really my uncle, is he, Grandpa? He's Mom's boyfriend. They kiss and stuff when they think I'm not looking." Before I could ask more questions, Victoria showed up to pick Sophie up. "Ready to go, Sophie?" she called, all smiles and cheerfulness. But I noticed how Sophie tensed up when she heard her mother's voice, how she squeezed my hand a little tighter before letting go. "See you next weekend, Grandpa," Sophie said loudly. Then, so quietly only I could hear, "Remember what I told you. That night I couldn't sleep." Kept hearing Sophie's words. A 7-year-old girl was trying to warn me about something, and I had a terrible feeling I knew what it was. Carl came by the store the next morning with more information, the kind that made my hands shake as I poured coffee from the pot I keep behind the counter for regular customers. "I did some more digging on Mason Torres," he said, keeping his voice low even though we were alone. "This gets worse, Leonard. A lot worse." I set down my coffee cup. "How much worse?" "Mason and Victoria have been together for over 5 years. Not 3 years, like I first thought. That means they were together while Daniel was still alive. Your son was married to a woman who was cheating on him with the man who would later investigate his death." The coffee tasted like ash in my mouth. "You're sure about this?" Carl pulled out a folder with photographs, surveillance photos from a divorce case I worked 6 years ago. Different case entirely, but look at this. He showed me a picture of Victoria and Mason coming out of a restaurant together. The timestamp showed it was taken 8 months before Daniel died. They weren't just having an affair, Carl continued. They were planning something. Had to be. Insurance investigators don't normally get cozy with the families of accident victims before the accidents happen. I studied the photo. Victoria looked younger, happier. Mason had his arm around her waist like they'd been together for years, not months. What do we do with this? We need more evidence. Concrete proof that the accident was staged. And we need Victoria to confess. Carl leaned forward. "I've got an idea, but it's risky." He explained his plan while I half listened, my mind stuck on that photograph. Daniel had been working double shifts that year, trying to save money for a down payment on a bigger house. Said he wanted Sophie to have a yard to play in when she got older. Meanwhile, his wife was planning his murder with her boyfriend. The plan Carl outlined was simple but dangerous. We were going to wire me up and get Victoria to talk. All I had to do was confront her with what we knew and hope she'd slip up. If she confessed to anything, we'd have it on tape. "What if she doesn't confess?" I asked. "Then we take what we have to the police and let them handle it. But Leonard, if I'm right about this, if Victoria and Mason killed Daniel, then Sophie's in danger too. Kids notice things, they remember conversations. If Victoria thinks Sophie might tell someone what she's seen, he didn't need to finish that sentence." I was already thinking about Sophie's warning at the park, how scared she'd looked, how she'd whispered like she was afraid someone might overhear. We spent the afternoon going over the plan. Carl still had recording equipment from his detective days. Tiny devices that could pick up conversations from across a room. He'd wire me up and monitor everything from his car parked down the street. "The key is to stay calm," Carl explained as he showed me how the wire worked. "Don't accuse her outright. Just ask questions. Let her think you're starting to figure things out, but that you're not sure yet. Guilty people often confess when they think they're about to be caught anyway." I called Victoria that evening. Told her I needed to talk about Sophie's college fund, said I wanted to discuss increasing the yearly payments. She suggested meeting at her house after Sophie went to bed. "Actually," I said, "how about that apartment downtown, the one you share with Mason Torres?" Silence on the other end of the line. Long enough that I thought she might have hung up. "I don't know what you're talking about," she finally said, but her voice had changed. Gone was the sweet, grateful daughter-in-law tone. This was colder, more careful. "Sure you do. The luxury place with the river view, where you've been living for the past 3 years while I send you $40,000 annually to help with expenses." More silence. "Then, we need to meet. But not at my house, and not at the apartment either. There's a coffee shop on 5th Street, Brewster's, tomorrow at 8 p.m. The line went dead. Carl was less than thrilled about the change in location. "Public places are harder to control," he said. "Too many variables. Too many people who might overhear or interfere." "She won't talk at her house," I pointed out. "Not with Sophie there. And she's obviously not comfortable with me knowing about the apartment. The coffee shop might be our only shot." We spent the next day preparing. Carl called in favors with former colleagues, arranged for backup surveillance. If things went wrong, if Victoria or Mason tried something, there would be people watching. People who could intervene. The wire Carl fitted me with was smaller than I expected. No bigger than a shirt button clipped inside my collar where it couldn't be seen. "Just remember," he said as he tested the equipment, "keep her talking. Ask about Daniel. Ask about the accident, ask about the insurance money, and whatever you do, don't let her know you're recording. I drove to Brewster's Coffee that evening feeling like I was heading into battle, which in a way I was. A battle for truth, a battle for justice for my son, a battle to protect Sophie from whatever her mother and Mason Torres were planning next. Victoria was already there when I arrived, sitting at a table in the back corner. She looked different somehow, harder. The sweet, grieving widow act was gone, replaced by something cold and calculating. She watched me approach like a cat watching a mouse. "Hello, Leonard," she said as I sat down. "I think it's time we had an honest conversation." "Honest conversation," I repeated, settling into the chair across from her. "That's something we should have had years ago." Victoria's smile was thin, cold, nothing like the warm expression she'd worn at Daniel's funeral. "You've been asking questions, Leonard. Questions about things that don't concern you. My son's death concerns me. My granddaughter's welfare concerns me. Where my money goes concerns me." I kept my voice steady, remembered Carl's advice about staying calm. 7 years, Victoria. 7 years of supporting you while you've been living a double life. You offered the money, she said. I never asked for it, no, but you sure didn't turn it down. $40,000 a year adds up, especially when you're already splitting a $500,000 insurance payout with your boyfriend. Her composure cracked slightly. Mason isn't my boyfriend? Then what is he? The man you've been living with for 3 years? The man who investigated Daniel's accident? The man Sophie calls Uncle Mason? Victoria's hands tightened around her coffee cup. You don't understand the situation. Then explain it to me. Help me understand how a scaffolding just happens to collapse on the one day the insurance investigator's girlfriend's husband is working alone on that section of the building. She was quiet for a long moment, staring at something over my shoulder. When she spoke again, her voice had changed. Smaller, more fragile. It wasn't supposed to happen the way it did. My heart started pounding, but I forced myself to stay calm. What wasn't supposed to happen, Daniel dying, that wasn't. We didn't plan for that. What did you plan for? Victoria glanced around the coffee shop, then leaned forward. Mason said if there was an accident, a workplace injury, Daniel would get workers' compensation. Maybe disability payments, we thought. We thought it would just slow him down, make him easier to handle. Handle how? The divorce, she whispered. I was going to leave him, take Sophie. But Daniel would have fought for custody, and judges always favor the parent who isn't having an affair. We needed leverage. The pieces clicked into place. So you and Mason staged a workplace accident to injure my son, to give you ammunition in a divorce case. Mason cut the safety cables that morning, just enough to cause a fall, maybe a broken leg. But Daniel showed up early that day. He always showed up early. And when the scaffolding came down, she stopped, tears starting in her eyes. When the scaffolding came down, you realized you could collect the life insurance instead of filing for divorce. Victoria nodded slowly. Mason handled the investigation, made sure it looked like equipment failure. No one questioned anything because accidents happen in construction all the time. And my money, the $40,000 every year, her tears dried up fast. That was just bonus. You felt guilty about the accident happening at a job site you'd recommended Daniel for. We figured it was the least you could do. The manipulation was breathtaking. For 7 years, she'd made me feel responsible for my son's death while knowing she'd caused it herself. What about Sophie? I asked. What happens to her when you and Mason decide to disappear with all that money? Sophie will be fine. She'll adjust. Kids are resilient. She's 7 years old, Victoria. She needs stability. She needs family. She needs a mother who's happy. And I haven't been happy in a long time. I stood up from the table. You're right about one thing. Sophie does need family. Real family. People who put her welfare first. Victoria looked up at me, confused. What do you mean? I mean, this conversation is over. And so is your access to my granddaughter. The trial lasted 3 months. Victoria got 25 years for conspiracy to commit murder. Mason got life without parole since he was the one who actually sabotaged the equipment. The jury didn't have much sympathy for people who killed a young father for money. Sophie came to live with me after the arrests. It's been 8 months now, and she's doing better than anyone expected. Kids are resilient, like Victoria said, but they're also smart. Sophie knew something was wrong long before any adult figured it out. We've turned the spare bedroom into her room. Pink walls, white furniture, stuffed animals everywhere. She helps me at the hardware store after school sometimes, organizing inventory and learning how to use basic tools. Says she wants to be a detective like Carl when she grows up. Can't say I blame her for that career choice. The insurance company recovered most of the $500,000 they'd paid out to Victoria, and I got back about $200,000 of the money I'd sent over the years. The rest had been spent on that luxury apartment and expensive vacations. But the money doesn't matter much anymore. What matters is that Sophie is safe. What matters is that Daniel's name was cleared. What matters is that justice was served. Some nights, Sophie asks about her parents. I tell her the truth in ways she can understand, that her father was a good man who died because other people made very bad choices. That her mother loved her but lost her way, that sometimes adults do terrible things, but that doesn't mean she has to carry that burden. Trust is like a foundation. Once it cracks, you have to tear everything down and rebuild from scratch. It's hard work, dangerous work, but if you do it right, the new structure is stronger than what came before. Sophie and I are building something new together, something honest and solid and built to last. Here's what I learned from all this. When someone shows you who they really are, believe them. Don't make excuses. Don't rationalize. Don't ignore the warning signs because you want to believe the best about people. Evil hides behind familiar faces, and good people suffer when we choose comfort over vigilance. If you're a father or grandfather reading this, trust your instincts. Ask the hard questions. Protect your family, even when protection means facing ugly truths. Our children depend on us to be their shield, not their enabler. And every day, check the joints twice.